Hello everyone, I'm Tristan here, and today I'm going to do a very special video for you all. Last year I did a video of my top 10 favorite Curious George episodes from mediocre to best, and I was really happy with myself after I made that video. Then a few months later, I thought of doing a tier list video. I haven't done one in the past because those are my favorite type of videos I used to watch on YouTube, and I even once thought of ranking every single Land Before Time episode from the TV series. So I decided to make this video for those of you who are fans of the franchise. And since there's many people out there who have ranked all 14 Land Before Time films from worst to best, I feel like no one has done a ranking video on the TV series yet, because I realize some people are truly forgetting about it since 2007, which is the year where The Wisdom of Friends was a thing. So what I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to rank all 26 episodes of The Land Before Time and find out which ones are the best and which ones are the worst. That being if the story is not written well or not, or if it's just the characters not written correctly in the episode script. That's right, 26 episodes in total. Not only that, but I'm gonna do the same way Schaffrillas Productions does in his ranking videos with those little jingles included whenever he inserted an audio clip of a source representing the source he ranked from worst to best, just to make the video interesting.
What you should do is purchase a steamroller and run over your copy of Open... Oh well, who cares?
The rules are simple. I do have each opinion on all 26 episodes, respectively, so I will let you know if some of you will agree with me on this ranking. And yes, I would eventually agree with anyone who thinks some of these episodes are good or bad, just to see how well they're treated with. Now with that out of the way, let's head on to the Great Valley and see what episode awaits us and deserves the best spot at the end. Let's get started. Wow, this is what I call a total mess. The hidden canon is nothing but a complete disaster in my opinion. The episode starts with a game playing Toss the Seed. In the middle of the game, the pine cone is tossed into an unseen entrance. The gang goes to discover what appears to be a canyon full of trees of unknown fruit. And you know what happens when they get there? They literally start to go out of character throughout this entire episode. They're not realizing that the fruits are very addicting. I mean, what kind of fruit causes them to be completely dumb out of the blue as they would start singing a horrible song that doesn't make any sense? Like, oh my god, that's just makes them poorly written. Not to mention that Sarah makes a freaking reference to the Jungle Book. There's nothing special about this episode. It's just pointless filler. The only good thing I found in this episode is the climax where they fight Red Claw at the end. That's just it. I am so angry that this episode barely has a plot in it. But the only good thing that it had was the fight scene and nothing more. This episode should be extinct for good. Seriously though, I just don't want to bother watch this episode again after this ranking video. It's so gosh darn awful. Ugh. I just don't know what to say about this episode. I'm just lost for words right now.
You, sir, are an idiot.
I'll be honest, I never think an episode with this much filler in it would be this bad, even when there's characters who are acting really stupid in an episode. I mean, take Thomas and Don't Go Back for example. He's really stupid throughout this entire episode. Like, he doesn't notice Mavis is right behind him, yet he and Diesel does not notice her off the track, and even worse, they accidentally bump into Ari and Bird, causing them to crash out of the engine sheds. That's what I figured.
Bust my buffers.
Nice going, idiots. But if you take those flaws into a Land Before Time episode, even when you take the kids deleting main role with Spike as the central character, yep, more pointless filler with zero plot. However, bringing back Tippy since her appearance in the Big Freeze was the only good thing I found. And I think Ducky's little song during the episode was kinda alright to me, but that's where the positives end. The rest of it is just Spike having fun with Tippy and nothing else interesting. Yeah, I don't find this episode fun at all. However, I think it might be 5 times better than the Hidden Canyon, yet it's just painfully bad at the same time. This is what I might think might be the most least favorite episode from Spike being the main character. Yeah, I just don't like this one at all.
I walk a lonely road.
I'm sorry to say this to everybody, but I just hate Chomper in this episode so much. So here's how the story goes. It's the time of great giving and Chomper is feeling lonely as the only shark tube at a leaf eater feast. but can he teach the other Sharp Team in the Mysterious Beyond how to be friends? Well, I don't think so. You see, I'm not a fan of this character, and the way he acts in this episode is so dumb. Like, he's written so poorly, it's hard to tell what's going on with him. I mean, he basically just enters the Mysterious Beyond and decides to sleep because there's no Sharp Tooth to exist, yet he did not notice the cave is filled with fast spiders. Can I just at least have one episode where the characters are not written badly but with less cliches and make the story more original? Yeah, there should be a Chomper episode where he's actually written really well and not become stupid throughout this entire story. Seriously, make me watch one really good Chomper episode for once.
It all belongs to me.
I know.
This is the only episode where Ducky becomes the main character than just Sarah. Not only that, I'm upset that Ducky doesn't get a really good episode, but I'm also not happy that this is one of those rare instances where Ducky starts to become jealous. And I know the Big Three's already done that, although I wish they would treat her a little bit better than just being out of character for her own will. The story is kinda okay, and I love the humor that it had too, but half of the plot is confusing my brain, especially when they leave Spike all by himself stuck in that hole. The other thing I don't like about it is the songs. I only think of one good song, but there's actually just one bad song that would be later placed inside the episode's story. The other bad thing I don't like is the fact that in some of the wide shots, the kids are computer generated whenever they are rendered, and wow, they look horrible than what they are in some of the video games that they had. As for the elephant in the room, do you ever wonder what Petrie's butt looks like? Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. I'll cross my fingers to say that some of these butt jokes are not that good in general, even when it's aimed at a younger audience, but Petrie has like the worst of the bunch. I mean, it's so strange seeing his adorable booty on screen, whether I found it really disorienting or not. It's just really weird to me.
You know what that means.
I mean, Petrie is literally acting the same way SpongeBob does whenever he's not out of character. Not this type of SpongeBob I'm familiar with. Overall, it's a strange episode that doesn't do all that well with its own story elements, even when you made Ducky really jealous than before.
I can't understand your accent.
Everybody loves it, but I don't. You see, the premise is really confusing than what I remember. It's not that good than what you think. During an unexpected trip to the Mysterious Beyond, the game must escape from Red Claw and decide whatever to help a Sharp Tooth in trouble. Seriously? Is that what's going on here? Ducky and Tupper are literally trapped with a fast spider. Why would they help out a fast spider if he's trying to kill them? Oh, right. Yeah, I know you all love this episode and all, but I'm sorry, but the premise doesn't know what it's trying to do. The songs are terrible than what I remember, and half of the characters don't even know what they're doing according to plan. I do like how they included subtitles to make sure that the commotion scenes with Chomper and Dud a little bit more complex. But again, the premise makes the story really hard to follow along and pretty much nothing important to the plot. It's no surprise that I put this episode really low on the list.
We got to go adventuring now.
Oh, hell! I will save you!
Where do I begin? Littlefoot's pal Ellie from the fourth movie returns to the Great Valley with her friend Red. The Red's breakaway soon put everyone in a tricky situation. I don't know. Does anyone know what's the point of this episode? I mean, the plot still manages to be crud while the complex makes it less difficult to follow along. And honestly though, I don't like Red's character at all. All I found from him is that he's just trying to be a bully to Littlefoot. Although, even though I don't like her either as much as I don't like the fourth movie that often, I think Allie does have a much better character arc than what I remember, so I guess that counts as good. But yet, I had no words for this episode anyway. It's way too boring to think if it's good or not, so I decided to leave this episode a little bit lower on the list. But at least it's actually better than Escape from the Mysterious Beyond. But again, I still don't get the point of it.
That doesn't sound very brave.
Oh yeah, little Nick.
If you thought the Search for the Sky Colors was the only episode that had the characters computer generated, well, it looks like this episode really had a lot of fun by making the Sand Creepers really uglier even when they're rendered poorly.
Here we go again.
This episode is about the Sand Creepers driving everyone crazy, so Littlefoot and his friends try to convince a cranky Sand Creeper to lead the others out of the Great Valley. I'll admit that the kids don't seem to be far out of character than the last few episodes I ranked on this list, because I think this is one of the better episodes that kinda works well with its story. However, the plot still seems to be very conflicting on how it turned out after I watched it. I gotta admit that Kevin Michael Richardson does a really good job voicing Scuttle in this episode, and Scuttle seems to be an interesting character in my opinion. However, the way he acts later on in the episode doesn't seem that much good from his character arc. I don't know, he seems kind of Wild Armish, you know, the character from Journey of the Brave. The really good thing I liked about this episode is when Sarah raises her voice at Scuttle when she starts to blow up in rage.
Cause if you don't help bring back the other Sand Creepers, who's gonna listen to your dumb stories?
Jeez, girl. Try to control your temper when you're literally starting to go insane. Overall, this episode still remains bad for some of the flaws it has, especially how terrible the Sand Creepers are when they're 3D rendered and wide shots. It's another episode that seems to be bad, which only has one good thing inside of it, but it still has a plot that doesn't do all that much according to plan.
It's not people, it's animals.
California animal.
If I had a nickel every time a character from a Land Before Time episode yeah, you get the point. This episode makes my brain hurt. Like, I don't have the potential to give myself a bit of resistance on how the plot goes. But I think it's a much better Spike episode than the Forbidden Friendship, although the premise of the plot still ends up losing some points. It still does give the context on how it almost works. Spike accidentally falls into a deep hole where he meets some funny new creatures who call him the Big Wise One. I have no clue how Rin, Linda, Milo, and Flower are, since they're kind of being themselves. But I think the way they treat themselves as characters still kind of makes them feel not so good at the end. As for Spike, I think he does have a better way to make himself treated as a well-written character. However, he still loses points for making the complex of the story really hard to follow. Also, the gratuitous beast has like the worst design than any other character I've looked at. I also love that scene where Ducky encourages Petrie to fly and swim. It's really such a sweet moment, but his reaction still makes me chuckle.
Refreshing for swimmer, maybe.
Also, from there on out, you're gonna hear me say Petrie whenever I mention him in the video. I mean, he is my favorite character after all. Anyhow, he appears to have a bit of bad luck in this episode. Like, the way he acts seems to be off whenever he's in panic mode.
Fall? Did they agree on an idea yet?
Me not know. Me too dizzy.
Poor guy. This episode seems to be meh and okay at the same time in my opinion. Not the best Spike episode in my opinion, but it still seems to be alright at the end with a few flaws.
This isn't how the story ends!
I've always found this episode very confusing, but to be honest, I think it truly shows how well the characters are treated better than the other episodes I ranked on this list. Grumpel doesn't want to be a story speaker anymore, so it's up to the unlikely duo of Littlefoot and Chopper to help prevent the Great Longneck stories from being forgotten. Yeah, unlike the Brave Longneck scheme, I think I found most of the episode quite boring with its story structure, yet it didn't overstay its welcome in the end. I personally think it's kind of a bland episode whenever I feel like it might be bad. As for Zero, Grandpa Longneck's old friend, I don't find him quite that interesting all that much. I think he makes the story a bit more difficult to follow along. Overall, this episode still lacks the structure of the story, but it's still okay. Definitely not my favorite episode of the bunch.
It's my birthday!
This is one of those Ruby Central episodes where I certainly don't get the point of the plot, because I really don't like Ruby that often when she's acted as the main character. This is truly one of them. Although it looks bad with some of its elements, there's actually a chance that the story might make the episode good for once. It still has a few things that made it not so good. You see, some of these plot convenient twists just don't make any sense. But I'm glad they're not fast-paced or anything out of the ordinary. It's just there for no reason. Like the beginning scene for example, Petrie nearly crapping his non-existent pants after noticing something in the bushes behind the kids, but it turns out to be Sarah having trouble with a branch stuck to her horn. When I saw the part, I was like, wow, really? That's how convenient it is? It's just there for laughs and nothing new. Yeah, I totally get it. Some of these parts make the episode convenient when it's not following along, but I think it's alright after I rewatched it. Also, if anybody's wondering what Stardate is, it's basically similar to birthdays, but in prehistoric times. And I didn't even know that after checking out the episode's wiki page. The Stardate celebration, in my opinion, still feels like it's missing something from its own kind, but I think it still feels like an underrated episode that hasn't got that much love.
Oh my goodness. Water. I think we hit an underground spring.
You know, bringing back Mo was such a good idea after he had a really major role in Journey to Big Water. However, I think the conflict still needs a bit of improvement. When Liquid and the other kids tried to find out why the fast brother stopped flowing, they ran into their old friend and discovered a secret about Chomper. I know that I said I don't like Chomper being stupid in an episode where he takes the main role for being so dumb, but for this one, I think he does something really well with the story. The whole thing I wanted to see is to make Chomper act really good in an episode. That way I won't have to deal with him being brain dead in a bad way. As for the songs, I think it's a good way to show the audience how much they really love the song Big Water from the 5th movie. I think it's a good way to show the audience how much they really love the song Big Water from the 5th movie. It's a neat song that makes you feel good inside, but the only issue I have with it is how fast-paced it sounds. I mean, I don't know why they would do that. Anyhow, even with one flaw, this is another okay episode with an alright story structure. But I wish they would make Mo a bit more characterized in the story, though. That's another issue I have with it. Not that good, but not so bad either.
I'm on my way from misery to happiness to thee.
Return to Hang It Rock is another Ruby episode that just boggles with my brain, although I think it might be 10 times better than the Stardate celebration after I watched it. I think the plot shows what it's trying to do, and I think it's a bit more exaggerating than what I remember. Skip is another interesting character that shows some courage to the kids, but I think his character arc still needs a bit more work when it comes to him interacting with the characters. But the elephant in the room is when we get to listen to Up in the Sky. And in that song, Jesus Christ, the models of the kids look even more terrible than the last few times I pointed that out. Although, Mr. Dicknose looks kinda alright to me when he's computer generated in some shots, but oh my gosh. I'll never get over how badly animated the kids look when they're 3D rendered. The episode still gets to be okay, even when the story has one flaw in it. I mean, it's still alright, but it's still not that good.
The logs started to roll down the hill.
Alright, now we're getting to the goodish side of episodes. Those episodes who I think might have a fair chance to be good, even when it causes a bit of problems it had in the story, it will still remain okay if it's structured correctly, thus including characters who are getting a little bit better with the writing. Now, the Great Log Running Game might seem like a weak episode for some people, but in a good way. I think this episode really showcases how well Sarah is written here, but my only complaint is that I wish there was a lot more focus going on with them, even for the build-up, since it's a tad bit complicated. The songs in this episode do have a lot of combat by making the true stuff really played out when it's settled differently on the characters, even for Sarah's case. I wouldn't say this episode is terrible, but it does have one of the funniest goofs of the entire series. It's so bad to point that out, but it's still pretty funny to see Sarah shown here when she's literally in the water a few seconds ago. I wouldn't say it's the best of the bunch, but I do hope that the next few episodes would make her prove her own self as a character.
It's back! It's after us!
I really appreciate how they brought back Doc as a recurring character. Something about his arc truly stands out how developed he is since the 6th movie. When Doc arrives unexpectedly, the kids are convinced that he's there to drive Chomper out. So Sarah leads the kids on a journey to hide their pal. Chomper's character kinda hinges itself to reality when he's a little nervous around Doc, but I think the setup built around it really shows how he's characterized. You know, I wish there was a lot more complexity with the story itself, but I think I'm okay how it's turned out in the end. There's nothing I could say about this episode. I think the plot in this one feels good in some cases. I don't know, that's all I had to say.
Ooh, an echo. Echo!
Despite being the first episode of the series, I think it will be a little bit more nicer this time. The Cape of Many Voices shows the detail of how well the plot goes, and I think this episode truly shows how Chomper is characterized. All he and Ruby wanted to do is to find a saber home, and I think it handles the set of the conflict really well too. I wouldn't say it's too well written for any case. I say it does have a lot in common with its writing, even for the first time. Well, besides the Whistle of Friends did poorly with its butt jokes like I mentioned earlier, I think this is the only good bone joke that they use in the series. Again, I get the point that these jokes are targeted at kids, but I think this is one of the better dirty jokes that they made for the story.
Hey guys, you have to see this! This is what we have to see?
Well, where did I seen that before?
Yes, but it's not much of a view.
As for the songs, I think they're really well done, and the pacing makes it a little better in some ways. Some parts of the episode made me laugh, while others I don't get the point of, but I think it stands itself alright either way. Anyhow, nice episode. Definitely not my favorite Chomper episode, but at least he's doing better in character.
Testing! Ah! Do you read?
Shorty did learn his mistakes and proves himself after the others gave him some helpful advice since the Great Longneck migration. And you know what? I think this episode shows him how he's treated, and it handles itself really good too. He, along with Littlefoot's father, Ron, traveled to the Great Valley to give Littlefoot the news that he will be taking the big Longneck test, a 3-stage test to see if a Longneck is capable of leading a herd. Meanwhile, Shorty tries to lead Littlefoot's friends on an adventure. This feels underwhelming under the circumstances of the neat setup. Like, the story keeps itself its own pace from its usual self. And I would say it's the best episode for Littlefoot's character too. My only issue with it is how the concept of the plot feels a little bit too generic. I think something along those lines makes it a little bit underwhelming, but I still think it's a good episode either way. And I think the comic scene is my favorite part of the episode, because I really enjoyed how it stands itself together. Overall, this is truly a decent episode I found. Nothing too personal or anything, I think it still feels good.
Don't be afraid, don't be scared, it really is nothing at all.
I love how this episode shows the concept of Hidden Rider being invincible. It's truly a neat setup, and this episode itself handles pretty well too. As for Mr. Dicknose, I gotta say this might be my favorite episode from his perspective. I mean, what can I say? He's such an awesome character. The songs are okay, and I think they stand up really good too. Everything about this episode feels really good. I even love the fact that they even mentioned Toronto from the Stone of Coal Fire.
Oh no, me no see. Me Uncle Toronto no leaf eater who met flyer who no other leaf eater who saw it.
I love that reference. Ducky's nightmare sequence is kinda alright to me. There's not a whole lot going on with it. As for Sarah herself, I think she's handled pretty nicely. She admits that she now has the nightmares of being scared and loses her pride. But Mr. Dicknose explains that bravery comes from admitting your fear and facing it. I love that bit of detail that they put in there. Also, how does anyone in the Great Valley know what a dragon is? I don't know, I think Toronto is crazy with the stories being true. The Spooky Night of Adventure is a strange episode, but in a good way. It's still neat and clever how the story is written, but oh boy, they really had to torture Petrie in this episode, didn't they?
Ow! Ow! Shoulder! What's that? You hidden runner back?
Me scared. Me wait outside.
What that?
Seriously people, just try not to wet his non-existent pants or else he'll be ending up like Piglet. Oh well. But I do like this little bit of dialogue at the end of the episode just to settle Petrie down from crapping himself.
There's always something for Petrie to be scared of.
No, that very true.
You know, you've been lying a lot lately, Ed. I don't lie. I tell my truth.
This episode could be close to show how Sarah is treated. Even for the context of the story, I personally think this could really show how Mr. Drehorn cares for her daughter. When Sarah accidentally scares up some belly draggers, everyone in the Great Valley thinks she's a heroine, but it turns out that she accidentally sets off a rock slide that runs the belly draggers away. The moral of the episode is decent in my opinion, not to mention that the plot of the episode is similar to the invasion of the Tinosaurs, which the main character distorts the truth about certain events with other species. The main difference is Littlefoot lied out of fear while Sarah lied due to her ego. I certainly think this might be better than the 11th film, just a bit more complexity of how Sarah is characterized. Also, I'll never get over how well the fight scene at the end is treated, it's really well done.
No one messes with a three-horn. Winter is coming.
This is the episode where I prefer Spike from being the main character of the episode, instead of being his usual self, just to see how well he's written. When the kids go searching for hard water sweets, Spike can actually hear the sweets talking.
The new song is from Sweet Bubbles Covered in Hard Water. The others have to see this.
Like, what? Doesn't make any sense. but I think it matters itself how creative the story goes. Spike apparently did really well in this episode for being cute and not stupid. I even love the way Rob Paulsen did an excellent job for making him talk when it comes to his mind. And it's really funny how Petrie, despite his warning not to cause any loud noises in the gusty canyon, yells at the top of his lungs, causing an avalanche by accident.
Do not you listen! Be quiet!
Like, could these kids know better by now after he warned Spike from earlier?
Spike, shh. Sometime even little grunt make hard water and ground sparkles give way to big landslide.
Also, whenever I get the urge that every time I hear the music in the background, it just sounds so similar to Kipper's theme.
The new Tree Star song is getting louder.
Is it just me? I don't know. It has the same bloat noises that they included. Either way, this is a terrific Spike episode. Not the best episode in general, but it does show how well Spike is written.
We will eat the eggs for lunch.
This is another episode where I need to mention about the characters being treated more often than what I expect. Despite being the final episode, I really think this episode really shows how a conflict really shines. And this would make Hip, Mutt, and Nod really well behaved than what they did in the third movie. I know they're still boys, but I think the build-up between them and the heroes truly states how much they care for each other. The chase scenes are fun, the songs are well written, and all the characters seem to have a lot of good personalities with each other. This is the episode where I think Hip in this game might be treated if they get to know a little bit better with the gang. And I do like their roles too.
I know! We can get the Fast Biter Mom to run after Petrie here, then the rest of us will scram!
That is so funny to me. Truly an outstanding episode for sure, but it's not even close to the best of the bunch, cause we got a lot more episodes to cover.
Aw, hurt tooth, huh? Yeah, you might have a cavity there.
Remember when I mentioned about Chopper not being too stupid in The Lonely Journey? Well, this is a better example. I mean, it takes place the same day as the first episode. I think Chopper handled pretty much better than the other episodes I ranked from this list. He just couldn't stop worrying about his body parts falling off. It's so funny. It's just pure gold.
What's next? An arm? A leg? My tail? Not my tail! What's happening to me?
And I love how they brought Frank Welker for this episode as the buzzing buzzers. That scene just makes me laugh with pride. I mean, Frank Welker and Jeff Bennett did such a good role with each other, even when they're working on Curious George. The premise itself has a bit of context within the story just to see how it all works out. I've gotta give credit to how Petrie managed to save Chomper's tooth while flying through the Sky Puppies, which is what he mentions in The Great Day of the Flyers.
Sip, fly through sky puppies. Me really hate that. Me did? Sometimes me scare me.
This is definitely a much better Chomper episode than what I remember. I'm serious, this is without a doubt a really good Chomper episode to be put on this list.
Oh, me think,
We were,
He's got a...
Then what you need is a good luck charm.
This is the part where I really love Petrie at his best. Everything he does makes it all too perfect, but I think they still treated him to what Piglet does in Winnie the Pooh. So I suspect most of these episodes treat him like rubbish, but the middle of jumping water shows him how well he's treated with. All he cares about is having to deal with bad luck, all because of Spike eating a trickly tree star.
he eats tickly red tree stars.
Littlefoot and the others try to convince him from not believing in bad luck because he's just overreacting. I especially love the climax scene, because this is the second time the shark teeth are sensitive what prey they hunt and eat when Red Claw, Screech, and the other driven away by Spike's stretch while closing on the rest of the gang. No doubt about it, the funniest episode ever created. I wish I could explain a few more things it had, but I still think it's a fun episode either way.
Ever since that day,
Petrie
was never the same.
Now this is where I literally love Petrie into pieces. But at the same time, I really love how well Sarah is characterized. This episode had some of the greatest songs in my opinion. I usually use this episode for most of my videos, and I can see why I like this more often than any other episodes I ranked. It has a neat concept between the characters and the relationships, even in most cases. All Sarah wanted to do is replace Tria's favorite shiny stone with another one at the Canyon of Shiny Stones. I think it might have a similar plot to the center of the earth. You know, where Tyrone lost his lucky penny in the sandbox all the way to the center of the earth.
My penny!
It's really such a fun episode in its own way. Not just that, but this episode shows Petrie at his angriest. The way he acts in the scene truly makes his character so conflicting. I mean, Jed Bennett really has to scream into that microphone like crazy while recording his lines.
Smoky Mountain no like flyers! Me make it mad! Oh, this bad place!
There are times when Petrie nearly suffers from any danger he has experienced throughout the franchise, even when he's pretty much dragged into submission by almost anything he fears of, well, besides shark teeth. So much for thinking about bad luck happening everywhere else. Like, why couldn't he make himself more calmer every time whenever he reduces pain? I mean, boy, I really feel bad for this guy. It's also pretty funny that Grandma Longnut doesn't have any lines when she's on screen. This is a really great episode to cover. It has its potential energy around the story, and they really had a neat concept of the plot. Also, can I explain how funny Petrie is when he's dancing like this? I just can't get over that. It's really cute. Oh boy, another episode that follows Sarah and Petrie at the same time. Given how the story is structured with its characters, it does give itself a few points. I mean, all they're trying to do is celebrate how thankful they are. That is if they think that the Bright Circle is watching them.
Bright Circle always watching.
No, it isn't.
I mean, why do they think that the sun is alive? It doesn't have eyes. There are some moments that I found kinda touching, especially the Sarah and Petrie scenes. I really love this little moment where Petrie looks at Sarah after she says this line of dialogue.
Maybe I've learned it's okay to celebrate.
He then does a wholesome smile at her, and her reaction is just priceless when she says,
"What's with the cute look on your face?"
It's such a sweet moment to their character dynamic. Given how many times Petrie and Sarah interacted with each other really shows how much growth they put into their personalities. As for the songs, I think the My Reality one is the best part of the entire episode. This is truly an awesome episode for Sarah's character, but I don't think it's the best one yet, because the next two episodes I'm gonna show you really shows how well the writing is.
But I cannot see, I'm legally blind.
This is an outstanding episode, and I think it qualifies how much characterization there is to take the filler out of the story. I really love that they brought back Guido as a recurring character, and Rob Paulsen still kills me every time he shouts like Toodles. And yes, it's another episode that centers around Petrie taking the main lead. I think this episode has a neat connection between Petrie and Guido's relationship since the 12th movie, given that their interactions always acquire a wholesome dynamic between the two. The part where Guido says this line to Petrie truly shows what he is.
If there's one thing I've had to learn, it's that you can't worry about being like everybody else. You just have to be yourself.
And it fits his character perfectly. The character aspect around it makes them feel like they always have a lot of respect towards each other, and the story itself makes the dynamic really shine towards the light. Also, Swooper, the titular hermit himself, just makes me laugh really hard than I remember.
I'm heading for the Great Valley with my new friends.
At first, I thought he was a character that might be forgettable after the episode ended, but after watching it again, oh boy, this guy is the true nature of this episode. Jez Harnell just kills me every time I hear that old man voice. Super hilarious, am I right? Truly an underrated character with such great momentum towards the characters. And the songs in this one are way more fun and way more better than the ones I found. Don't Be Scared is like Big Water, but the lyrics are different. And Good to Be Home is without a doubt my favorite song out of all of them. And we gotta talk about Peaches' mother herself, Mama Flower. She obviously feels a bit worried about her son getting lost in some cases, but in the end she realizes that Petrie is okay, although she notices that Petrie took some minor injuries when he and Guido landed in Black Rock. I enjoyed how they made her a protective mother for Petrie, but I'll try to talk about more a little bit later. Anyhow, such a gorgeous episode. The dynamic of Petrie and Guido makes the story really great, and the conflict of it makes this episode all worked out wonderfully. However, I think there is one episode that truly shows how creative the story is, and I think the end result with all the characters' perspectives really shows how the plot makes them 100% written correctly. I think you all know what I'm talking about. The Days of the Rising Waters is without a doubt, in my opinion, the best episode of the entire series. It's no explanation why I ranked this episode higher on the list. So here's everything you need to know about this episode. Petrie's old home gets destroyed and the kids have to help him along with his mother and his siblings as well. They've all decided to move to a new home that is much safer, but Petrie does his usual SpongeBob type of acting when he's upset. But when the kids reassured him that they will find another place within the valley, he decides to go along with it. After finding a new home, Petrie realizes that he lost his snuggling stick. He tries to find it, but his mother stops him, since the area is really dangerous for him to find it. Her mother finds it until another mudslide occurs, washing her away. Chomper then snips her presents and tries to rescue her. After Petrie's mother was rescued, Chomper gives Petrie his snuggling stick, which he found while he was rescuing Mama Flyer. And after all that chaos, Petrie realizes his confidence and heads to sleep, now feeling very tired and very comfortable in his new home. I really love how handled the story is. It's your typical movie day story that takes itself to a whole nother level. Everything about it is so perfect. The build-up, the writing, the songs, the way how everybody is treated correctly makes it all worth watching. Hell, even the climax hits itself like a ton of bricks. I absolutely loved how Petrie's brothers and sisters react at Chomper for not eating them. It's just so darn funny.
All the sky water is making it hard to find food. I'm getting really hungry.
So funny, it's hilarious. As for the side B part of the episode, or subplot I should say, Baby Trisha takes an interesting swim while watching Ducky and Spike swim in the pond. Sarah, fearing that Trisha might get into danger percolating in the water during the Days of Rising Waters, insists that Ducky teaches her how to swim, acknowledging that three horns are not naturally good swimmers. I think the context of the subplot makes it all well worked out. I even think it suits Sarah's character even better than the last episode I ranked on this list. But anyhow, back to the main part of the story. I wouldn't be so happy to say that Petrie didn't go too far out of character, but I really 100% adore him in this episode so much. Everything he does makes me happy. I mean, his cuteness just kills me every time Jeff Bennett yells into the microphone. But you know what really makes me happy the most? That is the ending scene where Chomper retrieves Petrie's snuggling stick. And if that wasn't enough, this part is just too innocent for words.
Now me real feel at home.
I just can't help the fact that Petrie couldn't be any more adorable than any other character. There are times when I think of Petrie being himself and just being innocent than what I remember, but this one scene takes it to a whole new level. As for Mama Flyer, oh boy, we really gotta talk about her in this episode. Everything she does is to keep her kids away from any danger they face, but I think the dynamic between him and Petrie might be the strongest aspect of the story. All she does is wanting to protect her precious son from being in danger without letting himself getting killed. There are a lot of times when Mama Flyer feels worried for Petrie being in danger, but it turns out that he is still alive once he is reunited with her after all the chaos he had throughout his adventures. You see, this is what symbolizes her as a supportive and protective mother of Petrie, and the part where she rescues her son when their old home is destroyed shows her how much she cares for him. And I think the message from Chomper when he talks to Petrie about moving really shows how he's characterized. This episode really gives itself an A+ for sure. I really loved everything about it. It's definitely one of my favorite episodes out of all of them. Not just my favorite episode in general, but the best episode that really shows how much I love Petrie as a character. And finally, I'm going to give myself the final results of the entire TV series after watching it and rewatching all the episodes. And my final rating is 7 out of 10. The reason why I give the series a 7 out of 10 because how many episodes caused a lot of problems with its mistakes it did. Besides the fact there are so many scenes when the kids are being completely horribly computer generated, and I think some of the summaries of the story elements shows us of how creative it can be to a younger audience. And I think that covers everything. That's all 26 Land Before Time episodes ranked from worst to best. Here's a complete tier list for those of you who are lazy, or if some of you forgot which episodes I ranked in order. This video is different compared to my top 10 list video because I really wanted to make a really fun tier list video based on Schaffrillas Productions Ranking videos. I don't have anything else to say about the series after editing this video. Either way, I had fun. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope I can make another video based on this once it gets a lot of reviews someday. Anyhow, that's all I can say for now. This is Tristan Lanier, signing off.